That is a little introduction to get us in the right mood, to compensate and make apology for having enjoyed the serenity of great art, the world indeed of Nicolas Poussin, which contains, I'm sure, many shadows, and he has his reasons for what he did, and I have my reasons for what I felt forced to do. When I had written this poem, which you've just heard, it was quite likely to comprise a serious blockade to ever writing anything else again. Once you shoot out like that, it's quite difficult. You can't backtrack. You can't merely continue as if nothing happened. You have to make some connection between an extraordinary and overwhelming event and the rest of your life. That is even harder to do than naked outrage. I don't know that this was really the underlying motive for composing this sequence to Pollen, but in retrospect it feels like it. You have to beware of artists' retrospects because they invent the most terrible lies, and they tell you things which seem convincing and which you're therefore invited to believe because they come from the artist's mouth. But it could easily be a rationalization. I could easily be making some mistakes, which is why you need to decide for yourselves, and why it's so good that Abigail has done some of these versions into French, so you'll be able to hear, on your own terms, in your own language, what they sound like. But there is a progression in this series from a rather opaque and dense and constricted form of composition, which has been my habit for some time, and a more explicit and overt and indeed somewhat violent simplification of the issues towards the end. I felt obliged to do this, and there were some terrible stories circulating at this time, by no means merely concerning our American friends. The British troops in Iraq had behaved atrociously, and the British police in London had committed some indisputable crimes against innocent citizens, which they persistently denied. So a kind of depravity of violence, all mounted up under the pretense of the war on terror, was everywhere in the air. One of my Chinese students asked me, "Please, what is this war on terror?" And I said to him, in the English language, terror is an abstract noun. You cannot fight a war with an abstract noun. You will have to work out what this means, but the one thing it doesn't mean is what it seems to say. So we had a discussion of how to translate this term into Chinese. It was a most interesting discussion. But not to pursue this point, let me turn to the text of To Pollen, and let me start off with the first 5 stanzas. But before I do, just to say, there are 22 stanzas. Each of them has 13 lines. This was published in 2006, and there is an epigraph. Indeed, there are 2. The first epigraph is from the Babylonian epic Gilgamesh, in the elegant translation, a recent English translation. And the 3 lines run, "Let my eyes see the sun and be sated with light. The darkness is hidden. How much light is there left? When may the dead see the rays of the sun?" The second epigraph is from an Arabic poet, I think Syrian by origin, who passes under the pen name of Adonis, and it's 2 lines. "Sometimes the field sprouts nails, so much does the field long for water." Neither of them very comforting. All right, here we go. So were in turn attach, herded for sound particle, did a fix scan to ultramont, for no matter broke could level cell tropic. Leading out Provence sub, manage ever enfold, rift token will to redeem, or flagging a massive glib finish. Bare face to give stringent paste. Does scatter, grab on or bet to ground one or two regulars at root in blanket score attempt. Seldom bred, did level placement promote up-rank incident recoil. Utter generic cell, fluid timbre. For it now, listen, to assert, play, to see, bring placid at a join, promise gated already infamous, rise alike, so do. Along the seam, cresting to burn out, black, my interim destruction. Abigail is listening very carefully to see how the line breaks work, so as to check whether her translation moves in a similar sort of way. I told her she doesn't have to mind about that, but she's obviously got her ear very closely tuned. Fortunately, it's too late for her to do anything about it. Right now, at any rate. Excuse me for making these disrespectful remarks.
That's quite all right.
Here comes the second poem. More to pollen, a script for elated finish. Above scale, at draw, tact, illicit, did both clamber, all infused, aloud. Shoot quickly now. It hurt so much. As to submit, engraver likeness, mirror from terror, alto style, lifted at furnish to a stroke. Is any more likely, footed along notable cliff sounds, edging close as passive as link project, to groan at once, in points still factorize, in flash worsen, blanket at a neck worth spoken, in for broke harm, your outward or minded up fast. Force like scriven, reserve, by mark to throat, tore to say, hunger led, acclaim bring, a mount brutal profile on influx, or while at loading, to stare plan off, by ripeness event be done bluntly. Just to make an inserted remark, which I shouldn't do. In that second piece, in amongst the congestion of difficult words, you'll have heard two short sentences which are not difficult at all. One of them is, shoot quickly now. The other is, it hurt so much. These are reports, in the words of an Arabic child, of the atrocities inflicted on her family, as translated by the news media at the time. Her family was destroyed by Marines in vengeance for some kind of supposed ambush. And she used this expression of the injuries which she suffered, as translated into English, it hurt so much. Any child might fall and hurt their knee, just as a small accident, and say, it hurt so much. But this is in very, very direct, plain English. Okay, now we move to the next. Fault plain under treading, lax, rip indelicate, path to its line to the furnace. Soon by mistake gains overfilled commander to mother up fewer or single nerve balances inverted along elate for normal drastic. Newer finding up reefs you see, sliced first partition. Why should that work? Mean passed over, no vigil, no truce, grab for best there and service altered runway. Truck hurt, failed list, incident Pacific, not civil, render back on principle, hinterland allurement. Afferent side, ripe on track refix, as rose up in mossy fibers, attuned, brimmer won't mix hand even extended. How could also not be lesser? Stand nearby, went off its oil trap refined. How much, so much, did they not care to say, handed up to rate at a base to confirm, no flatten, announce trivials online. Agree fillet weld, tournament at, whirling dared inscript, floor in sand for a trial, worsened by braving outcry points, they assembled in total yes answerable to perform. Or you would have a bandage for this, no count made up, numbers domestic to probable, well like enough imperfect reckon histrion. Pare back to no less. They will nil refute, will affirm on tabulate, true phantom, listening out for conjunct timing. Under bright sky there's no choice, but simmer, elevation, set up, grand rabble to beat, paints, metalloid, pan touches. Now then, that's 2, 3, 4. We have one more to do before you take over. Here is number 5. Afflicted purpose they hail, we cut them, they in turn line the route denied, holding it most. When better, dare to give up, blank medication, however, unfixed schedule, drop staring out. Noble fan, fair menu, joint crossed, net coronals, just see, novel incident, prove incipiency. Parents out from the destroyed symbolic crisis, line by line, raised to break manic intubated cast-offs. A too easy snap, a statement reissue, signing the way inward, ulterior cost structure to know. Watch on them, transfer price tags, lose breath profoundly, our yet living split for glass. Aggrieved, curb. Ever lack to tell further submission, the grassy way beneath.
Tente. Rarement élevé, placement étal, promut-il recul incident sur classe. Outre cellule générique, timbre fluide, à son écoute soit, pour dire joue, pour voir apporte placide à un joint, promesse cloîtrée déjà infâme. De même, lève-toi, ainsi fait. À l'arête, culminant pour brûler au noir ma destruction par intérim. Plus au pollen assigné, à finale exaltée, échelle accrue, au trait, tact, induit les deux, escalade-t-il tous en fuse, à haute voix. Tire au plus vite, ça fait si mal. Quant à soumettre graveur, portrait miroir de terreur, style alto, enlevé dès le fourni, au coup près. N'importe est-il plus enclin, à pied, le long de notables apics sonores, se faufilant auprès comme passif, comme projet de lien. Pour grogner, aussitôt en point, filon factorise. En éclair, aggrave, couvert d'un col, que vaille parler. Bon pour la casse, nuit à ton dehors ou relevé vite. Force comme écrivaillé, réserve. De marque en gorge, déchira pour dire, fin, mena, clameur à porte, montant brutal, profil sur afflux. Ou, en cours de chargement, pour contempler, plan viré, par maturité, événement, en finir abrupt. Plan de faille, sous foulée, manque, accro, indélicat, accès à sa ligne, à la fournaise. Bientôt, par erreur, les gains débordent, commandant à en materner moins ou, un seul, nerf, balance, en détourner, le long, exalte pour normal, drastique. Trouvaille plus neuve, en haut des filons, vois-tu, tranche d'abord, cloison. Pourquoi cela marcherait-il ? Moyenne dépassée, ni veille, ni trêve, le meilleur à l'arracher, là, et piste dégradée par l'usage. Troc, plaie, raté, liste, incident pacifique non civil, rend en retour sur principal attrait d'arrière-pays. Côté afférent à point sur la voie, répare comme, s'éleva en fibres mousseuses accordées, rabord refusera mélange, main, même l'attendre. Comment put aussi ne pas être moindre? Tiens-toi prêt, parti son piège raffiné à pétrole. Combien, tant, n'ont-ils pas cru bon de dire, rendu au goût du taux, à une base pour confirmer, non, aplatir, annoncer, trivium en ligne. Agrès, filet soude, tournoi au tournoyant, défier inscription, faille dans le sable pour une épreuve, aggravée en bravant des points de tollé. Ils se rassemblèrent en oui total, garant devant performance. Sinon, tu aurais un bandage pour ça, nul compte inventé ne vaut, domestique à probable. Bien comme assez imparfait, évalue histrion. Réduit à rien moins. Ils réfuteront zéro, affirmeront sur tabulaire, véritable fantôme, à l'écoute du chronométrage conjoint. Dessous ciel radieux, pas d'autre choix que couver l'élévation, fomenter grand rable pour battre peinture, poil métalloïde touche. Résolution affligée, ils, elles, nous les coupons, à leur tour ils longent la route refusée, la tenant le plus. Quand mieux vaut défier à céder médication à blanc, même si horaire indéfini, cesse de dévisager. Noble fanfare menu joint en brut, couronne en net, voit donc nouvel incident prouver survenance. Parents sortis de la crise symbolique détruite, ligne à ligne élevée, pour casser, maniaque, laissé pour compte intubé. Un bris trop aisé, une déclaration rediffusion signalisant le chemin vers l'intérieur, secrète structure de coups pour savoir. Veille sur eux, transférant étiquette de prix, perdant haleine profondément notre brèche pour le verre encore vivante. Virage lésé. Toujours manque pour dire davantage, soumission, le chemin herbeux dessous.
You know, those are very excellent translations, full of accuracy and force. And an interesting feature of them is the way in which the French intonational system works differently in verse from its counterpart in English. The stress patternings are quite different. So the question is whether the force of the original is altered in transfer and whether the transferred form renders the nature of the force in the original. And I think my answer to those questions is yes, it does. It is a different intonational structure, but the accuracy of the intonation in the French versions is decisive.